an important concept. So, what is Tracy writing? Tracy writing is when you have to convert a given passage to one third. Yes. So, it's the most important question in your paper. It is only one question, but it is the most important, you can say that, question in the whole exam is based on essay writing and Tracy. These are two questions which are the most important. So for Tracy, what you can do is you must have the required skill. And how can you achieve that skill? It is, you have to read widely, or at least every day, try to read and get the gist, the crux, the main idea. Yes. Any article, any page of the book, and practice it every day. And when you are reading, read with a purpose. What is the purpose? Reading with a purpose means you will have to absorb and select and identify the main points, the leading ideas. So basically what you have to do, number one, first in Tracy, first thing is peruse the passage or the article or whatever you are studying. Like select something, for example, down newspaper, one article, or from your book that you're preparing, any book that you're reading, take one passage or one page, or from any magazine. If you're reading a magazine, you can take one page or one passage or one chapter, short chapter, 1000 words, 800 words, 700 words. That's enough. So number one, take it and then read it. Now your reading will start with the first paragraph. If there are more than one paragraph, your job is easy. It is easy. Each paragraph you will read, try to read. Peruse means read meticulously, read carefully, read with a purpose. Here, convert each paragraph into one line, one sentence. Convert each paragraph into one sentence. Usually the opening sentence and the closing sentence are the most important, so you will exclude examples, evidence, data, and keep in mind the overall meaning. So convert each paragraph into, if it is a single paragraph, in that case you will have to read that and try to convert it into different thoughts, like where one thought is over and the other thought starts. So try to select those ideas, those points which are given. Usually in your Tracy there will be 5 or 6 points which are given if it is a single paragraph. If there are more than one paragraph, then 3-4 ideas will be from one paragraph and 2 ideas can be from the second short paragraph. So usually if it has more than one paragraph, as we see in newspaper articles, there are different paragraphs. That's easy. Each paragraph, one idea. If it is one paragraph or 2 paragraphs, then it's a bit difficult. So you will have to read and you will have to separate those ideas. Another important or easy method is you can see how many lines are there. If there are 21 lines, it means on average every third line there will be a new idea. So divide 21 by 7 or 6 and you will get 3 to 4 lines. So in those 3 to 4 lines you will find one idea. Usually general statement conveys the idea, examples and evidence they explain it. So try to convert, select the ideas. So here it will be read and identify the main ideas. Read and identify the main ideas, leading thoughts, leading ideas given in the passage. Try to identify the leading ideas that are given in the passage, and then you will move to the next point, and that is reading it. Like when you are reading here, read it 3 times. Read it again and again, 3 times, so that you understand what is the overall idea and what are the main points or the leading thoughts in your Tracy. And then you will have to make a rough draft. Make a rough draft. And number 3, make a neat or final draft. Final draft. Number 4, give heading or title. Heading or title to your Tracy. So first thing is, you will have to read it carefully, try to select the units of thoughts, then make a rough draft, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And here these points you will write in the form of sentences, which you will use in the final draft. In this way, you can make the 5 points and count the number of words. Count the number of words in the rough draft and see whether you can fulfill the word count. That is 1/3. If it has 100 words, it should be 33. If it has 300 words, you should write 100 words. Don't cross the word limit because there can be penalty over that. So it should be 1/3 or fewer than 1/3 words. If the passage has 300 words, you should write 100 or 90 words, not more than 100, 1/3. And you can count the number of words here as well, and then you can write the final draft. And after writing the final draft, then you will give heading. How can you give heading? You will have to see like whether the passage is about a person, place, or thing. If it is about person, it will be, or place or thing, that idea of place, that idea of person, or that thing, it will be repeated. It will be repeated. Or sometimes the passage can be about an event, an incident. So in that case, you will find verbs usually. The examiner will write events that happened one after the other, so it will be an event. Ultimately, find like a trip to a town, or it can be an occurrence or an incident, like how an epidemic or pandemic broke, or how a nuclear disaster occurred, like in Chernobyl or Fukushima in Japan. So if it is an event, the writer will use verbs. If the writer is giving description of something or someone or some place, then the writer will use adjectives. So try to see if there are more verbs, it will be action. If there are more adjectives, it will be description. So in this way, you can try to find it. Similarly, you will have to identify whether it is about a tangible thing or non-tangible. If it is about a person, place, or thing, it will be tangible. If it is about global warming, climate change, or weather, it will be non-tangible. So in this way, try to read and see what is the recurring idea. What is the idea that has been repeated? Is it about person, place, thing, event, tangible, non-tangible? So in this way, you can find the heading. The heading will be repeated or it will recur in the passage. And basically, when you come to summary writing, it is in fact, you can say that Tracy writing is in fact in 2 stages. Number 1, you try to understand it. Number 2, or you try to understand and absorb the ideas. And number 2 is you express. So basically it is input and output. When you are reading a passage, you are getting the input and then you are. So it is in 2 stages. One stage is when you understand the Tracy, and second stage is when you express it in your own words. The same passage. So for understanding, what you can do, you will have to do 2 things. Number 1, read and select the lead ideas. And number 2 is deselect the ideas which are not important. Try to select and deselect the ideas. Select those ideas which are important and deselect those ideas which are not important. So here, try to select and deselect those ideas. You will select the leading thoughts, you will deselect examples, evidence, anecdotes, and repeated adjectives and other things. So you will have to select and deselect, and then you will express. When you express, you must be organized. You must be organized and focused. Organized and focused. Organized means keep the same order that is given in the Tracy. You can change the order, but you don't need to take risk. Keep the same order keep the same arrangement that is given in the passage, and then try to stay focused on the main idea. What is the Precis about? If the Precis is about a nuclear reactor, or it is about weather, or is it about a memory, or is it about a visit, or is it about a human intelligence, or poverty, or pandemic, whatever is it, the central idea, the pivot, you can say that. What is the pivot of the Precis? Pivot. Around that pivot, the ideas will circle. So find the pivot and then develop it around that pivot. If you miss the pivot, the Precis will be lost. So try to understand the central idea, the main idea in the passage, and then find out. So it will be select and deselect. In understanding, you will select the right ideas if you know the pivot, the central idea, and you will deselect all those things which are secondary or supportive, or they are supportive, means they are not primary, or they are not leading thoughts. And then expression. Your expression can be organized, keep the same order, and then stay focused on the central idea. So all your subpoints should support the leading thought. And then the conventions of Precis writing. What are some of the conventions of Precis writing? They are, you will have to write it in, usually the Precis is in the past tense, in the past tense. Write it in the past tense and write it in the third person. Third person. Write it in the past tense. If the passage has universal truth, if it contains a universal truth, in that case you can use the present simple tense. Otherwise, use past tense. Try to convert it into the past tense and third person singular, like the writer stated that. And one more point, direct and indirect speech. If there are some information, if there are some quotations or examples or instances of discussion which are given in direct speech, you will convert that into indirect speech. You will convert that into indirect speech. So try to write in indirect speech. If there are some direct quotations which are given, direct narration that is given, try to convert into indirect speech. Similarly, third person, and try to write in the past tense. But if it has universal truth, then present simple can be used. Exploring the World of English by Sayyid Saadat Ali Shah, that's a very good book. You can go through it and see how some of the passages, their Precis is in the present and others in the past tense. So here, and number 3, direct and indirect speech. Direct and indirect speech, you will have to write in indirect, convert it into the indirect speech. Another thing which you will have to keep in mind while writing your Precis is it should be continuous writing. One paragraph. Try to write one paragraph, that's enough. Don't try to convert it to different paragraphs. And when you are writing your Precis, usually what students do, they read the Precis and then they write the points and then they try to go back to the passage again and again. No. First read it carefully 3 times, then select the ideas. After that, use those ideas and convert them into final draft. Don't go back to the passage again and again. You can spend more time when you're making draft points, but then don't go back to it. So this is how you will go. And then next stage is understand the conventions of Precis writing, but at the same time try to practice it. How can you practice? How can you practice? You can practice it by taking one article from Dawn newspaper of your own choice and convert each paragraph into one line. Let's suppose there are 8 paragraphs, convert them into 8 lines. 6 paragraphs, convert them into 6 lines. And then suggest an alternative title to it. Plus, there are some exercises like cloze test. A passage, and at the end of the passage, there are fill in the blanks. So try to solve such tests. And this way, you will develop this habit of reading and then reading accurately, reading the intended meaning of the speaker or the writer, not your meaning. Similarly, don't include your own comments, your own opinion, your own discussion, because you are asked to do two things: write the précis and give the title. So try to keep yourself focused and follow the instructions that are given. These are some of the important points when you will have to keep in mind while writing your précis. And for précis, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is reading skill. Read every day, read widely, and read with a purpose. Whatever you read, try to re-express that in your own words. And Twitter can be a good thing, because on Twitter you can express one idea in a limited number of words. The words should be limited, so use Twitter account and try to express one day. Like yesterday there were elections, local bodies elections in KPK in some of the districts in phase 1. So you can write one tweet about what happened, the whole incident. You can write in single. Sialkot tragedy, what were the problems? What is blasphemy and how the person was burned? One tweet. And that should be your own, don't copy. Economy. Some of the people like Shabarzadi said the entity is bankrupt. While Farooq Salim, who is a very famous writer, he writes columns in the news under Capital Suggestion every Sunday. You must read that. His columns are full of information. He said bankruptcy means you are unable to pay your debts, but Pakistan has paid the debts, so it's not. So there are some problems, but both sides are exaggerating them. Like nobody is giving the accurate picture, so you try to give the accurate picture in Twitter. So Twitter can be very helpful to you, but the most important thing for your exam, dawn newspaper, one article, and try to convert it into, and one précis every week. Try to write it and get it checked, right? Thank you very much. Have a nice